Hello and welcome to Startup Central. I'm Nayantara Rai. 2021 has minted yet another unicorn. It is the Edtech startup Vedantu. Here's a conversation I had earlier in the day with the co-founder and CEO. "2021 has minted one more unicorn, and this time it is the Edtech firm Vedantu. Joining us is the co-founder and CEO, Vamsi Krishnan. Thanks so much, Vamsi, for joining us here. Big congratulations. We have one more unicorn out of India, one more Edtech unicorn as well. How does it feel? Tell us more about it.
Thank you, Nayantara. Thanks for that, and thanks for having me over. No, it feels good. In our previous interactions, I said that I normally don't really like to make big deals of these valuations and unicorns and all that. But anyway, it feels good to have this milestone. What I'm really proud about is the impact which we've been able to create. And personally, for me, the whole journey of starting with this live online classes and obviously today seeing the category becoming mainstream is something which really motivates me and fills me with joy. So that is something which is very special. But yeah, thanks a lot.
So it's an important milestone, and I'm glad that we finally have one of the new unicorns who's coming on the channel and also appreciating that, because these days the trend to say, yeah, we don't look at valuations and all of that. But Vamsi, this one is also maybe more special because look at the investors you've gotten on board, right? From Tiger Global to Coty, etc. Marquee investors entering the cap table.
Exactly. So this particular round, we have a new investor on board, which is ABC World Singapore. So it's a Singapore-based entity with an impact orientation. But yes, apart from that, we have Tiger Global, we have Coty, we have GGV, we have Westbridge, and all other internals who have also supported and participated very strongly in this round, which obviously for me is a very big sign of not just support but validation of the sector in general. I'm sure, Nayantara, you know this, that pandemic and COVID has been kind for the sector, and we have seen a massive uptake in the awareness of this category. And had millions and millions of students actually getting exposed to this. So that obviously was very good for not just Vedantu but all other online services company as well. So the momentum is still strong, very strong, and we are still trending at almost like 4 to 4.5 times what we were like the previous year. So yeah, so far so good.
Okay, so you're 4 to 5 times bigger than maybe what pre-pandemic is what you're trying to tell me?
Exactly, right. So we had, in fact, just in the pandemic, the last year itself, we had almost 11 million students, unique students who came on Vedantu and took a live class, free live class. And that number was 10 times lower the year before. So that's been that's the kind of the trend we have seen. Even today, we have, in terms of free users just coming and accessing our web and app, we have around 35 million students, unique students, who every month come on Vedantu's web and app and access our free content. Out of that, around 1 million students almost take a free live class, right? And not just that, we even have largest YouTube channels of K-12 and therein we get around 65 million students who view us. So all of this really helps us reach more and more students. But having said that, we are still like less than 10% penetrated because India is a very large country and we have almost 300 million students in K-12 who are there. So a long way to go still. But yes, good to complete the 0 to 1 journey. But I think the 1 to 10 and 10 to 100 journey still awaits. So
still day 0 for the way you're talking.
Yes.
So 35 million unique children who took part in the live classes. That's a number you just gave me. Is that sustainable? Simply because there is reopening. I'm sure there is screen fatigue. Parents want their children to go back. Children want to go back to school. So this kind of growth momentum, is it going to be sustainable, and will you need to rework your model as well?
Yeah. So obviously the entrepreneur in me wants it to sustain, but the realist in me says that obviously we are not at all expecting the 4x year-on-year growth rates to sustain. None of us, we obviously, are realistic in our expectations. See, what I believe, Nayantara, is even before pandemic, and this is something which I definitely would love to tell you, that even before pandemic, we were seeing the whole sector, Edtech especially, growing at a 2.5 to 3 times year on year. So although pandemic has come and made that whole growth rate accelerated, right? But even before that, it was not that it was not going. India, as a country, really requires Edtech to solve the last mile problem. So we're growing at 2x, 2.5x. So what I believe is once the school opens up and all these things like sort of like little bit settles, obviously not 4x growth, but definitely would come down to at which very tough to predict, but somewhere maybe 2x, 2.5x. But the fact is all of this still makes us less than 5% or around 5% penetrated overall in the country. And with 95% students still out there who are left to be penetrated, there is a lot room to grow. And that is what really is going to power the next growth of not just Vedantu, but the overall EdTech sector in general.
Amzi, I'm going to have to ask you this one question, and it's something that you have talked about publicly and put up on LinkedIn as well. Vedantu was being seen as an acquisition target of Baiju. You came out on LinkedIn, you said absolutely nothing doing. This big fundraise that you entered the Unicorn Club, is it also more special because now maybe you won't be an easy target for M&A?
Glad you asked that question. So yes, those were a few not so great moments to counter. But no, thanks for the support of the entire community, including you, to probably put the right word out there. See, what I believe in Anthara is education is a very large market, and we do believe that there is a lot of value yet to be created and yet to be unlocked, right? So me, Pulkit and Anand, the co-founders, we started Vedantu to create impact at scale, right? And there is so much impact yet to be created. And that is our true goal. And hence, as a reason of that, we'll continue to, create and build Vedantu. Our long-term ambition is not to get acquired, not to probably end up somewhere, but really to actually, facilitate what we started way back in 2014, right? And as you rightly said, it's still day zero, right? There's so much to do. So I think as Vedantu, we were very clear right from day one that we want to create a long-term sustainable company, a company which maybe even continues to innovate and sustains even beyond our lifetime, right? And that's been clear day one goal, and that's the passion. And when once you are thinking like that and news like you mentioned comes out, so obviously a little bit trouble. So it was very important for me to go out there and clarify.
So this fundraise, is it to stave off becoming an acquisition target, or was it all anyway happening and you have growth plans?
It was there in the works, Nantara. And in fact, if you remember, even in that particular post and in some of my interactions, I'm sure with you as well, I did mention that we are looking to grow independently. And in fact, it's not that we have a capital issue. We already had a lot of capital, by the way. Just last year, we raised 100 million. So most of it is more than half of it is still lying there, right? So it was not that we anyways had a capital, issue. And on top of that, this, of course, gives us more firepower, right? To not just build this, but build this for long term.
Fair point. The other point I want to ask you is in recent times, if you look at it, Eruditus entered the Unicorn Club. You've had Upgrad enter the Unicorn Club. Now Vedantu's entered the Unicorn Club. And, we are, of course, in a liquidity glut, etc. But EdTech, we've seen more unicorns being minted in 2021 than 2020. Why is that? Is it the China factor also, or you all have just reached that scale?
That's a good question, actually. So I don't really think it's a China factor yet, because the China thing has happened recently. And I do believe that the whole development should benefit India, not just EdTech, but overall India as a whole, because, a lot of those, the capital and a lot of those investors who would have otherwise invested there would definitely, if not today, tomorrow, would, love to look at companies in India and park their money here. So overall, it's a positive development, I believe, for the country, but it's too slow. I mean, right now it's too recent for, it to have created any impact right now, right? I would see this impact getting created maybe in a 6-month time frame or even later. As far as your question on, unicorns, and I'm sure like you mentioned this, like few of them, I'm really happy and proud about this, Nantara, by the way. on the record, because I've been part of the Indian startup ecosystem way back when my first venture started in 2006. And I can literally tell you there is a sea change between those times and these times. And it makes me like innately proud to be part of this ecosystem. And I've seen that transformation happening from very early days of the 2006-7 times to now. So it's a great moment, and I hope the numbers keep swelling up and we have more and more of that. See, the fundamental reason behind that, I believe, is India is a very large market. And not just that, Indian developers and Indian companies and Indian products and services have an innate advantage of actually not just creating solutions for India, but also global solutions. And that really increases the market size to, maybe even 10 times. India itself is a large market, and then if you can create solutions for outside India, that's a very, very attractive large market. And that's probably some of the fundamental reasons why there are such large companies and such large investor interest in Indian companies and good Indian companies and good Indian entrepreneurs.
Is India leading the Edtech revolution in the world? Are we the global hub and the ones that are exporting it to the rest of the world?
We will definitely be there. I would not say that we are there yet. We are probably among the top, right? But if you say that, are we the clear number one? I would personally not say we are there yet. But especially after this development. See, very honestly speaking, we have a lot of relations, and I've been to China quite a lot of time and studied those Edtech companies. Chinese Edtech companies, obviously, given they started, developing before India, right? Because of multiple factors, right? The internet penetration and devices and all that. So the Chinese Edtech was definitely much, further ahead in terms of technology and adoption in general in the country, right? But given this recent development, I would say India now would be, if not the top, definitely in the top 2. And very soon we will probably overtake, and I'm extremely confident that we will become the number 1 Edtech in the entire world. And there are very strong and clear reasons for that. Because very similar to China and Southeast economies, Indians are very particular about education. They spend a lot on education, unlike Western counterparts, right? So there is an inherent that need and a drive, and that motivates and that incentivizes companies like us to innovate and create better solutions, right? So for example, Way, which is Vedantu's live learning teaching platform, we have been granted US patents on this, and I can safely say that is better than anything else out there in the world. Forget India. So that, there's a lot of innovation which you will see not just from just Vedantu. I'm talking about Edtech in general, which will be far, far, far superior and better in the entire world. And especially after this development in China, it really gives us a huge opportunity and opens the entire world for us. And I'm very excited about that.
Okay, that's great to hear. And so then brings me to my next question, because I'm guessing hybrid will be the way forward, right? In the post-corona world. And you also therefore see when schools reopen, Edtech becoming more affordable. It's still, a very premium niche product. It became a necessity during the pandemic, but it may not stay a necessity going forward.
So Nayantara, that I would, this is a question we keep thinking about quite a lot. So there are two things here. One is, let me just talk about the space where Vedantu operates, which is the after-school tutoring, right? And in all of the conversations with the parents, especially because in many areas, schools have already started opening up, 6th grade and above, schools have already started opening up. But very surprisingly, forget about degrowth, we are actually seeing growth rates continuing, and still we are trending at 3.5x from last year, right? Now the reason for that is, in all our interviews with the parents, what has come out is for schools, they believe that they have to send their kids to the school because of there's a lot of non-cognitive skills-based learning which happens in schools, like with the physical education, group things, debates, sports, and all those stuff. But for pure cognitive skills, which is their expectation from tuition and coaching, they now believe that pure online is completely possible, because that is not their expectation from these coachings and the tuition to have the the social development, right? There the expectation is very simple. There is a subject and he needs some help, and they see that this online is a very capable medium to do that, and that is why we are not seeing any substantial change in the after school tutoring. So that's point number one. So that's why as Vedantu, we are not really seeing any trend of slowdown. Definitely the growth rates will not be 4x, but definitely it's not that kids are going back. So that's on Vedantu, the after school tutoring space. Now coming back to the school space, we are interacting with a lot of schools. We have been working with schools even during pandemic, few of them, right, and supporting them in whichever way we can. And there definitely the future is very interesting. A lot of schools now, having seen the power of online, are now not thinking of having completely offline things, but trying to mix things up. Yeah, trying to mix things up, right? And that I would say is a very interesting development. You will see a lot of innovation coming as a result of that. A lot of different types of hybrid models, which people will start experimenting with. And then, some of it will, take a better shape. So the next 2 to 3 years is going to be really, really interesting. And we are very committed to work with some of the partners and schools and and help shape this up, right? Because it's very interesting.
Because I'm sure a lot of B2C edtech firms in that sense also have to have a B2B wing or go to B2C via the school. So, clearly interesting times ahead. Ramzi, before I wrap up, I always ask the newly minted unicorns this. Everything looks so rosy and like picture perfect. But people forget the almost death-like instances. A startup now sometimes has 6 to 7 of them. I'll ask you this to encourage the young entrepreneurs out there. Do you remember Vedantu's tough days? What would you say was the toughest day? Do you remember it?
Actually, quite a lot of them. That's the fun part. But since you're asking about one, let me think. Yeah, answer. I clearly remember that one day, right? Not long back. This was probably somewhere in 2017, around third quarter, wherein, without taking names, there was, some investor who had committed to put in money, and in the last moment, like after everything getting signed, term sheet signed, everything signed, just 1 week before the money was supposed to come in, like this literally backed out, right? And we had 3 weeks of runway left, right? And that's like it's as near to to death which you can go. So I think all the entrepreneurs face a lot of existential moments. This was the one for Vedantu, wherein we had just literally 3 weeks, right? Of money left. So yes, it's very fun to think about those days, but also very fascinating and satisfactory to see that we have probably been able to learn from it and work our way around it and to be where we are. So it's kudos to the team and the teachers, but most importantly the parents of the students who have shown their trust in us. That's really what gets us entrepreneurs going, right? Yeah.
Okay, so you had 3 weeks of cash runway left in 2017. In 2021, you staved off a big M&A from India's most valuable startup, and you entered the Unicorn Club. I'm sure an IPO will be there down the road. It's every founder's dream. But Ramzi, today's your big day. Thank you for making ET now a big part of it, and we look forward to more interviews.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Antara. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.